Right, I'm with Alexandra Readhead, who spoke yesterday. Extremely interesting talk on African territories and the extractive industries. And it sort of made me think a bit about why Jersey's expanding specifically into those areas. Is it an area you know about? Do you know about Jersey's involvement?
Look, I have a limited knowledge of Jersey's involvement specifically, but I am aware that a number of companies that are investing into Africa are obviously making use of offshore financial centres, particularly Mauritius, increasingly Senegal as well.
As you understand it, why? Why is it necessary? Because if you're a big company, you can go into a country, offer to help them, put up genuine money, do genuine developments, help the locals, make yourself some money. Why do you have to go through tax havens at all? What's the point?
Well, I think, as with most global businesses these days, they're interested in opportunities to minimise their overall tax bill, which means that they'll structure their investment into Africa in a way that allows them to route various transactions through their affiliate in the offshore financial sector, centre or low tax jurisdiction, as a means of reducing their overall tax bill. So nothing particularly unique to the extractive industries or.
But if they become an entity in, say, an African territory, South Africa, where it is, don't they become just taxable in that entity, in that country? Or is it their global interests are taxed somewhere else so they can minimise them globally? Well, I don't quite get the plot, to be quite honest with you.
Well, I think that obviously for extractive companies, when they look to invest in a country in Africa, generally the legislation will require them to set up a subsidiary or a branch in the source country, in the host country, and that entity will be taxable in that jurisdiction. However, particularly in the extractive industries, what we see is that the vast majority of the mineral production, metals production is sold abroad to affiliate entities. Similarly, all the high-value inputs that are required for the mine to operate, that the subsidiary requires, will often come from affiliate companies as well. So with a lot of inputs and outputs taking place within the group structure, there are clearly opportunities to locate that group structure in different jurisdictions where they can take advantage of lower tax rates.
Places like Mauritius, I mean, what sort of supervision have they got of their finance? What goes on in Mauritius?
Look, I think there's limited supervision of companies that are registered in Mauritius.
Right.
Yeah.
There was also, it's a very complex subject to try and grasp what actually goes on. But if Jersey manages to attract, and they have attracted some very big mining companies there. They've had, in previous cases, for example, I mentioned asbestos yesterday, where it all went wrong with asbestos. A lot of people were catching asbestos in the country of extraction. When those people wanted to sue for damages, they didn't know where to go and sue. Is that it raised itself as an issue as far as you know on the other types of mining?
Look, I think there's always an issue as to where the jurisdiction in which disputes take place with mining companies. That often, we've had instances where for example, the indirect transfer of assets within the mining company. So, the ownership of the mine is transferred from one entity to another, but that transfer takes place offshore. Right. So the opportunities for the source country to get access to the gains, to be able to tax the gains on that transfer in that other jurisdiction is a problem. So I think that, the ability for developing countries to reach into other jurisdictions, to whether it be for defending citizens that might have been affected environmentally, socially as a result of the mine, or whether it be to try and recover tax revenues.
I mean, the Jersey government sends representatives whenever they have the South Africa Mining Conference once a year. They always send them, and they always get a strong commercial team go from Jersey to be there, and I think they partly subsidise. I think they partly pay for the talks that go on there. That's a fairly direct government promotion. I mean, Jersey, the separation between commercial and government is very minimal. Now, it must be the same in Mauritius and other places, wasn't it?
Yes, I'm sure that is the case, that you have government officials from these countries attending these big mining conferences, and it's an opportunity to attract investment.
I mentioned yesterday also the Rwanda connection, because this is a development in Jersey. They're trying to find official government level. They've established a joint finance activity in Rwanda with Jersey. They've obviously got their eyes on the whole of Africa to try and draw in resources, get companies involved, tunneling money through Rwanda. Is that something you're aware of?
Look, not the specific circumstances that you're referring to in Rwanda, but I think certainly, obviously there are companies that are investing into African countries that have affiliation with Jersey and other offshore financial centres. That's not uncommon.
But can you imagine? I mean, the sort of this artificial transfer of low price and then it's high price when it really appears. Could you imagine that? Because obviously Rwanda's a small place, fairly easy to control. Jersey's a small place, fairly easy to gain control of it politically. Now, Rwanda, you can see it would have great political attractions for this sort of activity, wouldn't it?
Look, I think Rwanda is doing its best to attract investment and they've been very successful in attracting investment and in improving our health and education outcomes for people. So they're a real success story in Africa, and part of it has been opening themselves up as a place for doing business. So I think that from Rwanda's perspective, I'm sure it is a very
well, they've got to do something. I mean, even the Channel Islands, Isle of Man, they've all got to do something. They've got their populations, which are probably rather larger than they should be, so they've got to do something to support them.
Absolutely.
But obviously, it comes to the crunch. It wants to be reasonably ethical what they're doing, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, I think the interest of developing countries should be to increase revenue collection in order to be able to deliver better outcomes for citizens. And if that means that you need to attract companies into Rwanda that have affiliation with Jersey and other offshore financial centres, then I think, that's the way it goes.
I just happened to notice, I went down and had a look at the block of flats that burnt down, but the ex-judge who's been appointed to oversee the inquiry which is taking place, he sat on a case with other judges which involved the largest aluminium extraction company in Russia registered in Jersey, and I thought, well, but the outcome of it was of just pushing money around from Switzerland to another jurisdiction. It didn't seem to be very satisfactory. They just looked at the specifics of the case they were looking at, money that had gone astray trying to find it. They didn't really look at possible ethical issues, which is one of the things that worries me. Ethical issues don't get raised, do they? It's all...
I think so, but I think in the case of for developing countries, I mean, what's ethical at a global or international level is a concern, but what's more important is that governments are able to provide for their citizens, because for a long time their resources have left the country and they have seen very little out of it. So
there was a lady there speaking also from Madagascar, and I want to talk to her because they've got extractive industries in Madagascar, and copper, I believe, is one of the things they mentioned. And of course, they've got strong ties with Jersey, but from what would appear to be a desirable purpose, the sort of saving animals from extinction. So there's a Jersey Zoo, but they are very closely aligned to the Jersey government. It's all part of a PR mix. So it's very difficult sometimes to see. They said there are people make friends with the government at that level. Very socially desirable things, but then next thing you know, there's maybe a tax haven element going on there as well.
Sure, and I think the alternative is presumably for countries like Rwanda and Madagascar to stop doing business with companies that are affiliated with offshore financial centres, and I don't think that is a reasonable burden to put on developing countries or a practical solution. So
well, obviously Rwanda had the most unfortunate start 20 years ago, for whatever reasons, whatever interference there might have been, but they did have millions of people killed, so it wasn't a good start to have a democratic government, was it? Any other thoughts?
No, happy to leave it there.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks very much indeed.